This is my current events project focusing on Hurricane Fiona and these science standard connections. So, the article I chose to focus on talks about the strengthening of Hurricane Fiona to a Category 4 storm and its direction towards Canada. Hurricane Fiona has wreaked a lot of havoc and destruction on several countries and territories, and the article here talks about the storm's movement towards Canada. The country is currently preparing for what will probably be record achieving winds and rain when Fiona comes to their shore. The article talks about a lot of the statistics and data that have been recorded as Fiona has kind of moved its way through the ocean. Hurricane Fiona has had maximum wind speeds of 130 miles per hour, and the winds have extended as far as 115 miles from the storm's eye. And the article talks about the fact that hurricanes are really rare in Canada, but the country's leaders are still preparing to have to really hunker down, stay inside, have enough supplies and shelter for their citizens. The article also talks about the efforts that are still being made in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was one of the countries hit hardest by Hurricane Fiona, and they are still really struggling. More than 60% of people are still without power in Puerto Rico, and even more are struggling to find clean drinking water because of the debris and destruction that have been left behind by the hurricane. So for the standard connection, I chose to focus on S1E1, which is a first grade earth science standard. The standard says obtain, evaluate, and communicate weather data to identify weather patterns. Hurricanes are a really special type of weather phenomena, and so much is said and done with hurricanes and their data that phenomena such as Hurricane Fiona can really cover all four of the substandards as I've broken them down here for you. Substandard A, there are a lot of resources that present the data in real time view of Hurricane Fiona that students could explore. They could see tables and graphs of the data from the hurricane. Some of them could even make their own tables and graphs, maybe as an enrichment activity. For Substandard B, students could investigate and identify types of precipitation that often accompany hurricanes, like rain and hailstones. Substandard C talks about investigations with weather conditions observation and recording weather data. So, the measurements and statistics of a hurricane, like what's presented in the article, would be a really great opportunity to talk to students about the different tools of science that are used when investigating weather. So, thermometers, wind vane, rain gauge, barometer, all of that. This would be a really great opportunity to introduce that, have kids maybe even have some hands on experience with those instruments if you have the ability. Substandard D talks about seasonal patterns of change, and hurricanes appear in the Atlantic in what is called hurricane season, like what's mentioned in the article. So students could study kind of the why of this season of storms and what the changing temperatures have to do with that. These are some extra resources that particularly pertain to Substandard A. So they present different kinds of data about Hurricane Fiona. The top link actually is a view like from space of the recording of Hurricane Fiona developing in the oceans, kind of the way that they track that. And then the bottom link has several tables of data about wind speeds of Hurricane Fiona and shows their graphing. Some other content standards that could be connected to Hurricane Fiona in the article that I presented here. The math standards, the presented article and extra resources discuss wind speeds a lot, as well as the movement speeds of the actual storm. And this data could be used to create word problems about comparison of numbers, which would pertain to standard MGSE1, NBT3. Or you could create addition word problems with the numbers from the data, which would pertain to MGSE1, NBT4. I would suggest that the addition word problems probably be an enrichment activity because first grade standards only require students to add and subtract within 120, and the numbers presented in these resources and articles are a little bit higher than that. In terms of reading an ELA, the article that I presented here is clearly nonfiction informational writing, and that is something that students in first grade need to know. But standard ELA GSE 1RL5 says that students should identify the difference between informational text and a narrative text. So this article that I presented could be easily paired with a personal narrative of someone who has lived through a hurricane, and students could compare and contrast the two different purposes of these writings about the same topic. I've linked a YouTube video here that has personal narrative of people who have lived in Puerto Rico during Hurricane Fiona, but you could easily include other ones. So I hope you found this informational and enjoyed the presentation. Thank you for watching.